Linda, hope that I can have you through the rest of my life to introduce me as I walk through this. Your energy and your passion, is just amazing. So it is an honor to be here. Hello, everyone. I am Vicki Hart, Director of Client Engagement at Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a workflow, web, brand, and strategy marketing agency. And over the past 10 years, it's over 10 years, we have helped hundreds of businesses make millions of dollars in revenue. And we are thrilled to welcome you to Why Your Marketing Doesn't Work. As I mentioned, I'm Vicki Hart, Director of Client Engagement, and I'm here today with our founder and president, one of the smartest people I know in marketing, Rachel Durken. We are an award-winning agency. As you can see, all of our leadership has won awards in our area of expertise. Not to mention, we have won design awards for the past 6 years running. So not only do we design things that look good, they work for function and form. So we are thrilled to be here. Rachel, please take it away.
Before I get started, I'm just very excited to be surrounded virtually by women. I'm sure you can all relate. I'm hoping none of my children walk in today, but just last week I was in a sales meeting and my 2-year-old walked in with 0 pants on and decided to just lay down right there with her butt hiney in the air and asked me to cover her. So we're going to hope that doesn't happen today.
Awesome.
I kid you not when I say I locked the door this time. So we'll see what happens. But today we're going to talk about the top 5 reasons that marketing fails. And the first reason that I often see is that our clients don't have a clear goal when they come to us. What I mean by that is that they haven't set key performance indicators or a clear direction on what they want to get out of their marketing strategy. Now, when you're doing key performance indicators or your goals, I usually bucket it into 2 ways. One being direct ROI. We all love that one. You track a marketing activity all the way to the completion of a sale, and you understand that for every dollar I spend on marketing, I get 3 back. Now, that's not always easy to track, but it's our favorite thing to track. And I'm going to talk more about that later in this presentation. But that's the easy one. I want to grow by $1 million. And if I invest 100,000 and I make $1 million, that was a good win. And we'll talk about how we track that. But the other thing that's often overlooked is brand building and brand assets and what that is. Now, when I say words like brand assets, people usually give me this face like they don't want to hear about it anymore, because marketers always say, oh, we're going to help you build your brand. And then you spend an awful lot of money and you're not really sure what you got out of it. And that is not what I want. When I'm talking about brand assets. Think of it, brand assets, as this concept of compound interest. So when you're doing marketing with a direct finite goal in mind, one goal, you're going to get that one thing accomplished. So think of it as on a hamster wheel. I want to get a new client, and that's my whole goal. So I'm going to just keep my eyes out for that client. But forever, you'll be on that same hamster wheel, running at the same pace as fast as you can for the same return on investment. And there won't be compound growth. If you include goals that encompass brand assets while you're doing that, what's happening is that hamster wheel is getting bigger and bigger, and you're moving faster and faster, and you're accomplishing more over time. So think of it as a snowball effect. It starts small, but if you think in the long term as you're building while also going for short-term objectives, then the goals and the accomplishments get bigger as you go. Now, what do I mean by brand assets? Because this concept of a brand, unless you're Coca-Cola, you're going to spend $10,000 doing a Nielsen report every month, is not really easy to track. But in small business, we have some strategies for that. So picture that you own an auditorium, and you can stand on the stage and there's 1 million seats. It's even bigger than this auditorium that you see here. And you can scream whatever you want from that stage, and whoever's in that auditorium is going to listen. Now, if that auditorium is empty, you look like a crazy person. If the auditorium is full of people who are interested in your product or service, you're going to do really well. Brand assets are the concept of building that auditorium. It's your email list growth with quality leads. It's your social following. It's the hits to your website. It's the CRM, your CRM being built over time. So I'll give you an example, but I don't want to jump ahead of myself. What I often like to do in marketing in order to get that return on investment is what I call a major campaign and a minor campaign. So I made that up. So like, if you haven't heard from it before, don't worry about it. But a minor campaign or a major campaign might be anything that builds your email list. gets new faces in it, gets new people in it who are in your target audience with information. And then you share information with them. A minor campaign is re-engaging those people over time. So one, you might pay some money for to get new blood. The other is to nurture those new people that have come into your list. Now, when I talk about brand assets, I'm jumping around here. When I talk about brand assets, my favorite thing is email list growth. Because when you think of email list versus social growth, social media followers, you are renting them. Think of that as renting. Facebook can change their algorithm tomorrow. LinkedIn can change its strategy, and you can't get to those people. So they're the kind of people that you go out to the bar and you hang out with, and they're fun friends to have. And you're like, oh, I'm so happy I saw you at the bar, Bob. But you can't call them if you get a flat tire. An email list is what you own. Growing that over time, you have captured the attention of those people, and you can call them or re-engage them at any time when you need them. So you do want to use all of your brand assets as a point to understand the value of your brand growth, but your email list is the number one most important one. So some of your KPIs or key performance indicators that you're going to track to measure success are going to be things like email list growth, social, website. And some of the KPIs that you're going to track for return on investment are going to be things like leads, sales meetings, proposals created, and accounts closed, obviously. Now, sometimes it's hard to do because your sales cycle might be very long. So I could say, if my client comes to me and says, well, I want to get $1 million by the end of the year. Remember, we're doing compound interest and we're getting that snowball. So we're going to get more leads in at the end of the year than we are at the beginning of the year when we first start out. So you want to set KPIs along the way to make sure that what you're doing makes sense and is impactful, so you don't have to change direction. You don't want to find out at the end of the year that you failed at your goal. You want to find out early if something's not working. And that's why KPIs are so important. So number one, set goals and set key performance indicators to map those goals along the way to tell if you're successful or not. Now, this presentation today, because we only have 30 minutes, is the high level of the 5 things that companies are doing incorrectly. But luckily, we have very detailed webinars and tools in each of these areas where you can drill down deeper on what these things are and learn more about them. So the first tool that I'm going to drive you to, now that we understand how you set goals and how to build brand assets, why you need to set goals and what brand assets are, we can learn about the how and why in this mini webinar that we have on our website. So Vicki, if you actually want to grab the links for me and throw them in the chat, that would be
It is in the chat as we speak.
Good.
Isn't that magical how that happens? It really is. I feel like Charlie, by the way, and you are my angel. I feel like
it's the other way around, but whatever you
want.
No,
it really is, but we see you and we don't see me. So there you go.
Okay. Fine. So, and also as you get questions along the way, put them in the chat and Vicki will keep an eye out for them. So the second reasons marketing campaigns fail is there's an unclear audience motivators. Now, what I mean by this is I'm sure you've heard 100 times, oh, you have to know your target audience, and you're probably sick of hearing about it. But there's different tricks to making sure that you know the right information and that you're using it properly. Understand that marketing consists, at a basic level of 3 ingredients: your audience, your messaging and your positioning, and your go-to-market strategy. 99% of the time when a new client comes to me, and this is from companies that are, publicly traded to startups, they always say, we want marketing, we want social media, we want a billboard ad, we want a media buy, we want, they always talk to me. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. Can you, Vicki? Okay. They always talk to me about the go-to-market strategy. That's what everyone thinks when they think marketing. They think of the tactics of the how. But the tactics only work when the audience and the message is right. You can post on social media all day long. If you don't know your audience and you don't know what you're saying to them, I promise you will not get a return on investment. You can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on an ad in any media outlet, and I'm sure you get advertising for it all the time and people trying to sell you on it. If you don't know your audience and you don't have the right message, you're not going to get any return on your investment. So how do you know your audience? So we've heard of the audience DNA before, which is, are they a man or a woman? How old are they? How many kids do they have? Where do they live? What's their income? All of those are like the physical DNA of your audience. But it's so important to go down multiple levels to the pain, the behavior, and the motivation. Now, what I mean by that, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big fan of Sandler training, Sandler sales training. I've taken it. I've put every one of my employees in it. And in that, they talk about the audience pain funnel. The audience pain funnel has 3 levels. There's the surface level pain, and then there's the financial pain, and then there's the emotional pain. In sales, we always say that depending on that if you can get somebody in a conversation down to the emotional pain level, you will almost always close the deal every time, 99% of the time. Now, it might be odd to you if you're in a B2B environment to say, well, I'm not going to go and talk to the CEO of that company about what keeps him up at night and, why his kid is mad at him. But if you can build the relationship to do that and get to the root cause of their motivators, you are more likely to close a deal. And the same is true for marketing. Now, in marketing, however, we are talking to people at different levels of the pain funnel, depending on what we call their buying journey. I'll give you an example. When in marketing, because we do one of our services is that we service our clients' outsourced marketing department. And that means we do their strategy, their audience planning, their go-to-market plan, their social media, their email, all of it. Most of the time, and Vicki, you can confirm this for me if you agree, that new prospects come to us and they say the words, I need social media marketing. That's like
almost exclusively starts with social media marketing.
I want to grow my business with Facebook, or I want to do better on LinkedIn to get leads. And the thing is that I truly believe, and especially in a B2B environment, that social media, well, I don't believe, I know, because I've been doing this for 15 years. Social media in and of itself is not going to produce a return on investment. It will do a lot of things for you, but it's not going to get you the revenue that you want. However, social media done in partnership with other marketing activities can be one of your strongest tools in your arsenal if used correctly. Now, my perception is social media is not what you need. The client's perception is social media is what they need. If you go to my website right now, social media is at the top of the list in our service drop down under marketing. Because during the consumer buying process, the first thing they're looking for is social media. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Vicki, do you have anything to add to that, or should I just keep going?
Well, it's always the 9 to 13 touches, right? And when you're always trying, I use the example of, the My Pillow guy. Yeah, it worked, and no political angle here at all. It's the guy threw $1 gabillion in one channel and it worked really well for him. But unless you have $1 gabillion to spend, one channel is never going to work. So it is that full 9 to 13 touches. So it's your social media, plus your email, plus your networking, plus your webinar, plus your panel discussion, plus. All of those things cumulatively add up like compound interest to build your brand awareness.
Thank you. And then when I talk about behavior, so I'm talking to you about, surface level pain or perception of the need. Then when I talk about behavior, what I'm talking about is when someone's ready to make a buying decision. I'll give you an example. We have a client that's a divorce attorney. That client gets insanely busy in September and in January because everybody's just spent a whole lot of time with their families around the holidays and the summer. And that's when the divorces are getting filed. We know that. We have marked for the last 10 years this funnel and when things uptick. And so we know we actually have a series set up of like 12 different webinars, touches that they go through this journey. Divorce 101, what do I need to think about? All the way to how do I file? So they're thinking about custody. They're thinking about finance. They're thinking about how to pay for things. They're thinking about everything before they make that decision. It could be a 2-year buying process before they decide to actually buy. And so it's about figuring out the motivation and what's going through someone's head throughout the entire buying process to know when to touch them. I'll talk about what a touch is in a little bit, and what to say at the right time. So knowing your audience, who they are, how many kids they have is not enough, but knowing what they're thinking and when they're thinking it is the level you want to get to. And you can do that through, if you're a very small business, you can do that simply by having a conversation with your 5 best clients. What were you thinking during the buying process? We do that quite a bit for clients, or we do voice of the customer interviews and we dig deep on their buying behaviors. And then you can go all the way up to focus groups if you want and start mapping emotional behaviors along the way. And then
we also now have comprehensive data on a pandemic, and now we know it takes 3 to 4 months for people to decide they've had enough.
That's true. Now we've gone through it. And then the last one, of course, is motivation. Is it a pain versus pleasure, a want versus a need? All of these things matter. So knowing your audience at that level is how you're going to craft the right message in a way that will resonate with them, and how you're going to know when to get them into your funnel and when to push them back out of it, and what the message is. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. So if you don't know your audience's hopes and dreams at every month of the year, you don't know your audience well enough. And
one of the things that people also miss is that segmentation of the audience. Also, it's like, oh, my target audience is women, 25 to 55. Well, what's happening in each of their stages of lives are totally different. And if they're in construction, or if they're in procurement, or if they're, so where they are, you have to get granular. And I find that most people stop at just being okay with, I need to meet women in this age group. And that's just not enough intelligence to be able to make a decision.
Mm-hmm. So we actually, we have a target audience worksheet on our website that you can use to start kind of mapping out what do you know about your audience and what do you still need to learn. And Vicki will drop that in the chat as well. So that's number 2. Number 3 is having the wrong message. So you heard me already preaching about the message, so you can tell I'm very passionate about it. But on average, we have an attention span as humans of about 7 seconds. Now, interestingly enough, I just did a podcast with a brain neuroscientist. Is that the right word? A neuroscientist?
That's what everybody's doing.
I don't know if the brain is the title, but with a neuroscientist, and her and I had a debate over all of my studies in marketing have showed that our attention spans have gotten shorter. Her argument from a scientific standpoint is that our attention spans as humans have actually not gotten shorter, but the stimulus around us has gotten so much more that we can only focus on something, that we only choose to focus on things for about 7 seconds. Either way, the point is the same. You have about 7
that's
seconds.
A choice?
I guess we've been conditioned. So we have about 7 seconds to grab somebody's attention. So when you're articulating a message, in my opinion, no longer are the days of one big billboard or one commercial. It requires multiple touches. And I'm going to talk about this later, that we call it the 9 to 13 touch rule, to re-engage with somebody shortly over and over again. Now, the key here, once you know your audience at the right level, is crafting a message that will resonate with them in such a way that it articulates your value propositions and services and solutions to be a solution to a challenge that or a perceived challenge that they have. Now, what I mean by that is during this touch process, the message must always be consistent. So as marketers, I might have a message for a client and I might say the same thing in different ways. So I feel like I'm talking to my children. I might say the same thing in different ways, in very short bites over and over again. And when I'm sick of hearing about it, somebody is just starting to listen. It is actually exactly like my children. So you want to make sure that you're articulating your message over and over again, but in different outlets and quickly. Now, for example, you also want to consider how humans consume information. For example, we remember things we see, like a visual photo, for average 3 days longer than something we read. We remember videos or something funny or something that we can associate. Remember in when you were studying for tests, how you used to have those acronyms that you could associate with things longer than we remember something that is just pops up on our screen or is told to us. So we want to make sure that when we're articulating the message, we're articulating it in such a way that it's being reinforced for different ways of memory. The other thing that's so important about the message is perception. I had a client years ago who is a culture consultant. And when he came to me, he had been working in Fortune 500 companies. He was hired by the HR directors and he helped to improve their culture. And that's a big hot topic in large corporations. Everybody got it. They're like, oh, we need the culture guy. He did very well there. He saw an opportunity to shift into manufacturing. He's like, the culture's terrible there. I can really help people. And he shifted his business model into this new industry. And for months and months, he was getting nowhere. So he came to me and he said, I don't understand. Nobody's hiring me. They really need this service. What is going on? And so I did customer interviews, just like I mentioned earlier. And what I heard, I'm going to generalize this, but it took longer than 5 seconds. What I heard over and over again was I don't want to worry about anything else. My problem is efficiency, recruitment, and retention. That's my problem. And so I went back to him and I said, you are never again to these people going to say, I can help you with your culture. You're going to say, I can help you increase efficiency, improve your recruitment strategy, and increase your retention by using my services. And sure enough, suddenly he was getting a ton of leads because his perception of what he was doing and delivering versus what his audience thought they needed was totally disconnected. So perception is everything in your message, and making sure you're articulating it such a way is really important. So again, we have a case study on this site, on our website, that talks about this in more detail and gives you examples of how you can change your strategy or consider or evaluate your message to adjust it to your audience. Okay, number 4 is a disconnect in the go-to-market plan. So this is that third ingredient I mentioned. So you heard me say before this 9 to 13 touch concept. Again, I'm going to repeat it. On average, it takes 9 to 13 touches to engage your audience. Now, a touch can be an email they get, meeting somebody at a networking event, seeing you on social media, seeing you in a press piece. All of these things are touches. Now, a good marketer is not going to let the touch process be random. We want to get people into what we call funnels and then re-engage them there. That is why email is my favorite thing, because once I have someone's email address, I can push them through funnels continuously. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a moment. But think of marketing as like pointillism. You want to make sure, when I was a kid, I saw this painting and I thought it was the coolest flipping thing in the entire world. I don't know if anybody else thought that, but maybe I was just a weird 9-year-old. But this painting is made up of millions and millions of tiny dots, and it creates a full picture. That is what marketing is like. Imagine if I were starting this painting and all I was showing you was this tiny little circle where this tree is. You'd be like, I don't understand what she's getting at. But if you're patient and you can back away and wait until the picture is done, you see an entire universe created by dots. That is a successful marketing campaign. These series of purposeful touches or points that create a big picture impact. So in order to be successful in doing that, you need to have things like metrics tracking, AKA the goals up front, having the touch points strategic and outlined, and talking to the right people over and over again. Because I'm going to say this, remember those 9 to 13 touches. If your message if you have an error in your message in any of the touches, you can just assume that the entire campaign breaks and you have to start over again. It's like taking this spot of green and putting a big red dot, a couple red dots in the middle of it. The message has to be consistent in every touch to the audience every time. So it's about creating this dance or the symphony, so to speak, that's very purposeful, talking to the right people in the right way at the right time, but over a period of time to close the sale, whether you're selling a widget or a $100,000 consulting fee, whatever it might be, you need a series of touches in place. So that's why the plan is so important. They've done study after study on this, and we know that marketers that document their strategy are over 300% more likely to succeed. When you don't document your strategy, it's impossible to get this picture at the end of it. So having every single process documented, knowing when you're going to send it and how you're going to send it, allows you to not only set up metrics and track what's working and what's not, but it allows you to make sure that you're going to follow through on that entire touch process. So at the end of the day, you get the return that you want. Now, this is a very, very basic, I'm moving all of your faces down, example of what a touch process might look like and how you would measure the return on investment for it. So for example, and I'm just rounding numbers here to help me with my math skills, but let's say your ultimate goal. So I come to you in the very first step, set your goals, and you say to me, I want to increase my business revenue by $1 million. And I say, okay, well, in order to do that, how many new clients do you need? I need 10 new clients at $100,000 each. Okay. So, and I say to you, what's your closing rate? And you say, well, I can close about 50% of the qualified leads that I get. Great. That means that we have to meet 40 people. So then the question becomes, so this part right here from meet, present, acquire, and increase is all the sales process. And if you don't know that data now, that's okay. That's something that we can start tracking over time. But that's all the sales process. What we need to figure out before that is the marketing piece. Okay, well, and again, I'm really cutting this down here, but I'm going to show you a more complex part of the marketing process in some future slides. But okay, I need to do a webinar, and I know from past data, again, if you don't have this up front, that's okay. You'll get the data as you continue to do these tactics. But if I know, okay, I need to meet 40 people, And I have about a 20% rate of, if I have to do an event or a speaking engagement or a webinar, about 20% of people will reach out to me to have a conversation. So that will get me to that one webinar will get me to the $1 million that I need. That doesn't usually happen. But then I know that I need 200 people at the webinar. And then I say to myself, okay, how can I guarantee 200 people at my webinar? Well, I'm going to do this marketing strategy. And in this case, I'm just going to say, well, if I spend $10,000, I know I get 200 people, and that ultimately leads me to $1 million in sales. Now, this process is not something that anybody who's just starting their marketing campaign is ever going to know. But the whole point is, after about a year of us working with clients, we should be able to map this. And now it's not the same every time. Different webinar topics change the closing rate. Different timing of webinars or events change the rate. I can give you, Vicki and I can, if we have time, can share a story about what happened to us during the pandemic, where the same webinar, we did one and we got 600 leads, and we did the exact same webinar with a very similar marketing strategy a month later, and we got 150 leads. So all of these factors can adjust your return on investment. But the point is that you want to start tracking generalities so you know what you need at the top of the funnel, and you can flag earlier than how successful you're going to be and what you need to adjust and when. So, and a great example of a case study where we had a very complex long-term system. This is actually that divorce attorney that we worked with. And the reason we've been so successful with them is we've been working with them for 6 years. So we were able to set up these funnels for that last for 9 months, but we were able to, over every month, adjust, look at the open rate, look at the click rate, look at the conversion rate, and adjust it. And so now it's kind of been perfected. COVID kind of threw all our data for a loop, but we got new data, but it can be perfected. So we have the optimal strategy in place. So the last one, and what I think is one of the ones that's missed the most, and it hurts my heart, is the marketing that leads to sales. So remember, you heard me talk about brand building and tracking brand assets earlier. And I'm sure a lot of marketers have said that to you. And I'm sure that there's not a clear correlation between the marketing of brand assets and the sales, but there is, and I'm going to show it to you if you know how to make it work. So before I get into that, because I have a really cool infographic, I want to give you an example. Remember, I said that it's 9 to 13 touches to close a deal. So we're going to use the number 10. We're going to pretend you need 9 touches to close a deal. And the reason I'm saying 10 is because, again, I need help with my math to do it concisely. But if you have a salesperson and you have no marketing strategy, and they have to talk to 10 people 10 times, they only have time for 100 meetings in the month, and they're going to talk to 10 people 10 times, they're going to close 10 deals. In the math logic world. But if you have a marketing automation process that takes care of most of those touches for you, let's say it takes care of 8 of those touches for you, then your salesperson only has to can talk to 50 people 2 times and close 50 deals. So the point of marketing is to, at the front of that touch process, I don't like the word automate because, there's a lot of human intelligence behind it, but essentially automate as much as that touch process as you can. So when it gets to the salesperson, you are increasing the number of quality meetings they're having, and you're shortening their sales cycle exponentially. That is our entire goal in life, at least for us, in most cases. Right, Vicki? That's your goal in life.
Well, yes. And I always talk about those as being our superhero powers, right? And I think every single organization has superhero powers. It's about identifying what they are. Ours happens to be quality lead generation. Again, back to your amphitheater example, and then shortening the sales cycle. And yes, that is my goal. And thank you for setting me up for success.
You're welcome. Okay. So here's what the infographic I was referencing earlier, and I'm going to move everybody's head again. So here's where I want to articulate to you how important brand assets are. So pretend that somebody enters the funnel. I don't know if you can all see my air quotes, but if somebody enters the funnel, and this is whether it's through a webinar or sponsoring an event, or doing LinkedIn advertising and getting people to a download tool on your website, or whatever it might be, anything that gets somebody where you're able to capture their information and maintain it in a non-aggressive way is the top of this funnel. Okay. This is the advertising and networking. Once they're in the funnel, this is all the marketing automation. Maybe you have more events coming up. Maybe you have a blog post you did. Maybe there's a social media strategy that you're engaging to create engagement and articulate the culture of your company. Maybe you have a download tool like that worksheet I showed you for target audiences. Maybe you're hosting a networking event. It's all opportunities to re-engage your audience again and again. Now, I'm going to say this. Do not make the mistake of saying, I'm going to raffle off an iPad in order to build my list. If you're in if you're in a consumer market and you're selling iPads, that's a great strategy. But if you're in the B2B market, you want to make sure that you're enticing people to come to your funnel with content, information, freebies, giveaways that they care about that relate to your service. So I'm not going to go in and just raffle off an iPad and hope I get a bunch of email lists and then market to those people in my funnel. I'm going to do things where I'm talking about content, sharing information that gets people who care about what I have to say and the solutions we provide into my funnel. And then I'm going to give away as much free information as I can until they think I'm the smartest, coolest person in the whole world. So when they're in this funnel, somebody might go around this circle for months, weeks, years. I mean, Vicki, we have people in our database who we're very friendly with, who will never buy anything, but they are super raving fans of our emails and our social. And that's great because they could be good for referral sources. They can stay in my database as long as they want. The more somebody's in this circle, the bigger, we call it raving fans, the bigger fan they're going to become. Okay. So just because they don't come out of this circle into a sales funnel is okay. It just means that you're creating raving fans and building brand assets. However, what you want to do is every time you have an event or a campaign or whatever it might be, you want to push. So I'm sorry, let me back up. This circle is that auditorium. This is what I want to get people into to be hanging out in. I want to entertain them. I'm going to put on cool concerts. They're going to want to be there. They're going to bring their friends. But every time I do a campaign, a webinar, a download tool, anything that triggers a re-engagement, I'm seeing that they're engaging with us again, they're going to get entered into the sales funnel. What that is let's say after a webinar, often we'll send out 1 to 2 automated email drips. Thank you for coming to the webinar. What did you think? Would you fill out a survey and give us feedback? If you missed it, you can watch it here. Here's 3 more resources you might find interesting. Okay, that's it. Again, I want to share information. The second email will probably be like something like, would you like to have a complimentary strategy session, which we offer with a workflow CRM strategist or one of our marketing strategists or one of our web strategists. We're happy. We do free consults all the time. Free consults are really wonderful for us because we hear about what's happening in the marketplace and what people are struggling with. And then we're able to use that for our clients and ourselves in our marketing strategy. But that's neither here nor there. So understand this all the way to this email 2 right here. You can see my cursor, right, Vicki?
Yes.
Okay. This is all marketing automation. Now, statistically, and this is our stats, so that I pulled from like last month. But statistically, when somebody's doing when we're doing an event like a webinar or whatever, I get about 1% of participants calling me for the ultimate consult meeting. I want to buy something from you, right? 1% conversion. Fine. Email 1, I usually don't get much more than that. By email 2, I usually get between 1 and 3%. So that's like at this point, we're at like the 4th or 5th touch, depending on how long they've been in this funnel, could be the 800th touch. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone to clients and I said, we got you 150 leads. Of the 150 leads, this many people opened email 1, this many people opened email 2. What have you done with the leads? And it hurts my heart. I literally had a client say this the other day. Oh, I didn't do anything with them. So you had 150 leads, only about 3% closed. You were thrilled with that. And you left the rest of the money on the table. I liken it, Vicki will hear me say over and over again, you have to squeeze every piece of juice out of that orange to get your orange juice. And she basically went like this and walked away. If what you want to do after this second marketing email is transition it to the sales team. Now, remember the key here though, is that core message being the same. So whatever message I was talking about earlier needs to transition to the sales team. We know statistically when the sales team, without being salesy, reaches out and says, what did you think? And there's a human connection. What did you think? Do you have, would you like to share the webinar with any friends? Would you like to be interested in a consult? We get about a 5 to 10% conversion rate at that point with a meeting. By the second, we usually do 1 more phone call. By the second one, we get an 8 to 15% conversion rate. If you do not transition from the marketing to the sales team with the same consistent message, you are stopping at 3% success as opposed to 15. And that happens most of the time.
Most people stop at one email as a follow-up. Thanks for attending. Maybe if you're lucky, people are going out to 2, but there's 3 or 4 other steps to take in order to get that quality conversation happening.
Exactly. So now, but the thing is that if somebody doesn't engage, so you don't want your salesperson to be salesy, pushy, or aggressive. You just want them to be simply engaging in collaboration and sharing information, because if they don't convert, they simply go back into the funnel and they live there again. They become raving fans until the next event is triggered. Now, so just to recap, the 3 things that should always happen after a marketing campaign is finished is a sales. And when I say sales, this can be an individual. We need a personal connection, especially in this COVID world, is an email from a human, a LinkedIn connection from a human, and a phone call from a human. That should happen after every engagement in order to maximize the return on investment. And often, again, we don't see that. So you have to think of it as marketing to sales, not marketing and sales. They have to work together in order to be successful, to shorten that sales cycle. So I think I'm jumping ahead, so I already talked about this. The one thing I will say that I didn't talk about is being consistent on timing. So if I do a webinar and then my sales team, and then we have like a 2-touch drip campaign that is timed for the week after, and then the sales team doesn't follow up for a month, you've lost the process. You've lost all of your mojo. It's the same concept as having the wrong message or having the message be different. You have to have consistency in the timing of the follow-up strategy in that 9 to 13 touches. So I also want to be very clear that funnels can actually be run simultaneously if they're set up correctly. So maybe you're doing one funnel that's getting people into your universe, that's like LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And that's a great strategy to be able to build relationships and pull in new blood. Or maybe you have a download tool on your website where they have to give you them your email address in exchange for the free information. Or maybe you're doing a speaking engagement or a webinar or a conference or sponsorship, and that's drawing people to you. You don't have to do one at a time. You can stack them. What I mean by stacking is whenever we come with our clients, this is where that snowball effect comes in. We start with foundational marketing. And then and foundational marketing is things like having your email consistently going out with quality information, having your social media being posted on a daily basis with quality information, having blogs being written on a regular basis with quality information. So all of this is like your basics. It has to be done before you can build on the rest, right? But then after that, you can set up funnels and let them keep running. So for example, let's say you do a live webinar. After that's done, you can make it a download tool on your website and have it running forever. And then every now and then cycle through marketing it again in your email and your social, whatever it might be. You can do a LinkedIn Sales Navigator or a LinkedIn advertising strategy. You can do a co-branded email or an ad campaign. But after years now, if you went to our website, we have so many different download tools. We probably have 20 to 30 different resources, webinars, download tools. And we do that because, again, it creates raving fans and new information for our clients, but it also creates funnels. So even if I create no new content, I now have enough to keep my team busy to remarket different things that we marketed 3 months ago, but the content is evergreen, or we can repurpose it slightly and it's still relevant. And we cycle through that. And that's constantly keeping our funnels going. Now, when I explained earlier, these major and minor campaigns, they might make more sense. So to me, a major campaign is something brand new. You might have to pay for it. Maybe it's a webinar that you do with a publication or a sponsorship you do at a conference, but it brings in new blood to your funnel. A minor campaign is something that re-engages that funnel again and pushes people back out of it. Maybe it's, so I have a great example. Before COVID, our strategy, we had a great email list, but our strategy was not as much of an email list. We had more personal interactions because we had a sales team that was going out there, chatting with people, sponsoring things, etc. If I was to do a webinar without paying for it, I might get 50 people attend. And that was good. And that's great. And that re-engage them. Now, after COVID, most of our strategy has been about building our brand assets and then re-engaging them to build relationships virtually. We did a campaign with not paying for it, nothing, just send it to our email list that we've been spending time the last 18 months building. And we got 200 people to show up. And half of them were new, half of them were old, half of them I've seen them in engaging with us, but they've not had a conversation with us. That's the example of a minor campaign that I didn't have to pay for that was successful because of all the work we did on the back end growing the brand assets. Another great example, and I know I'm running out of time, of brand assets is I have a client who, and he'll kill me if he hears me say this, so don't tell him, but basically they offer a service very similar to Zoom, but it's much more secure and it's for, companies in an intranet setting. So when COVID hit, he was very smart. He called me and within 3 days, he said, I want you to offer our service for free to anybody who wants it for the next 3 months. And we will provide our service for free. So it's like virtual conferencing. He did this for a couple reasons. One, he's very smart and he knows that when users adopt technology, they usually don't change easily. So he wanted to grab them early with, giving away services for 3 months on the, for a long-term return on investment. However, I was able to deploy a campaign like that in 24 to 36 hours because we only went after his brand assets that had been built over years of blood, sweat, and tears. And he had a ton of people agree to do that. And so they gained a nice market share. If he didn't have brand assets, I would have said, I can do that, but I need $10,000 to start reaching out to people. And I can tell you right now, the return on investment would have been a lot lower because it would have been one touch as opposed to these people who have become raving fans of his over time. So having those brand assets can have a huge compound impact later. So you always want to be focusing on that growth for the long game. So you heard me mention LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I don't get to get much into it in this presentation. However, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a great strategy to acquire and capture new leads. And we have a mini webinar on that if you're interested in learning about it. It really is like a direct lead conversion strategy. So you can check that out if you want to.
I dropped that into the chat earlier when somebody asked about LinkedIn. So
good job. Good job, Vicki. Okay.
Thank you.
So as a recap, because I know we're coming up on time, the 5 reasons that most marketing strategies don't work is a lack of brand assets and long-term goals, not knowing your audience really at a deep level, not having the right message, or having the wrong perception of the message, being consistent and purposeful in outreach, and following through on the sale every single time. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions, Vicki, in the chat, but I'm happy to answer them. And then shamelessly, I'm happy to offer a free consultation. We will not try to sell you anything. We would love to see if we can support you. We do both workflow CRM, sales integration, like automating sales processes. We can do that type of consult with our workflow strategist, or you can meet with one of our marketing strategists to talk about your marketing strategy, your messaging, your audience, all that fun stuff.
Yep. So what I'd like to do is invite everyone to take look at Emily. Yay. Thank you. What I'd like to do is invite everyone to turn themselves off mute and invite you into the conversation and ask if you have any questions or comments. I'm sorry, I had a limited view before. I was unable to get out of speaker view, Rachel, so I only saw you. I didn't see that everybody was here. So that's where the Charlie, you really are the Charlie, and I'm happy to be your angel, by the way. But are there questions or comments that you would like to